Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to be using census data in ArcGIS Online and go through the entire process of downloading a table of data from the census and shape files and joining them in ArcGIS Online. So let's assume that the scenario is this. We want to find out where within our county there are larger households. And within a county, we know that census tracts are a smaller unit of analysis. We could also look at block groups or blocks, but usually those numbers are really small, so census tracts are often the best geographic unit to look at. So we'll be using the census tract level of data. And so there are 5 steps to this. The first is to download and clean the data from data.census.gov. The second is to download a shapefile from the census Tiger files. The third is to upload both of those things to ArcGIS Online, and finally join them and create a map out of them. So we'll be going through each of these steps briefly, and you can screenshot this and come back to it later on, but we'll be using data.census.gov. And we'll be filtering using the geography filter to limit our data to census tracts. And remember the cardinal rules of cleaning your table. We have to find the geographic identifier and make sure that it's in the same format, text or usually text in both the shapefile and the table of data. The first row has to be a header with no spaces, and the second should contain data, not a subheader. And then we'll have to save in CSV format. And you'll want your data ultimately to look more or less like this, right? Single header, second row is data, no spaces in the heading. Then we'll download the shape files from the census, and we will keep them in a zipped folder, which we'll then upload to ArcGIS Online, and the table in CSV format, which we'll upload as a hosted layer. And then join the table using the Perform Analysis, Summarize, and Join Features tool. And finally, once we've done all those steps, we can start visualizing the data. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is open data.census.gov. We can use the Advanced Search tab. And the first thing we'll do, so that we don't forget, is to filter the geography to the census tract level. We'll be using data for Orange County, California, so that we just have a smaller data set. So we'll check all census tracts within Orange County, search. Notice it pulls up a measly almost 4,500 results. If we limit those to just tables, we see 1,345 tables, still measly estimate here. And that's all of the tables that would be available. So we'll filter even further, since we know that we want data on households, household size. We could look up household and family data, or rather household and type, and see if we then have fewer options here. Looks like that did not work. Okay, it's still thinking here. If all else fails, we could also search by table number. So here, after a little bit of thinking, the site's now pulling up the tables relevant to households and families. My computer's being a little bit slow, so bear with me here. In the meantime, we can open up a second tab if yours is faster and type in Census Tiger Files. And you'll notice the link that pops up under the ad is the census.gov Tiger line shape files. You can click on that. And we'll just have this open and ready for when we come back to downloading the shapefile. It's still thinking. Okay, here it goes. So here we see the households and families data, and it's taking forever to load. Why don't we do this? We'll go back to our filter and we'll type in the table number B11016. And that didn't work. So let's go back up to our advanced search and type in the table here, B11016. So once we had the geography and we typed in the table number, we were able to pull up this table, which we can click on to view the table. And we'll see that the most recent data are the 2018 ACS 5-year estimates. As usual, we do want to use the 5-year estimates, and the most recent data is perfect. Here we can see that we have the margins of errors and the estimates. Let's go ahead and click on Customize Table, and just for the purposes of this particular exercise, we're going to remove the margins of error. Notice each census tract has an estimate, the number of total households, and then family households, non-family households broken down by number of persons in the household, as well as the margin of error. If we uncheck margin of error, we can just retain the estimates, make sure that the geography is showing here that we've limited our geography, and we do see census tracts in Orange County. Oh, the margin of error came back here. Okay, and now we can click on download. Make sure that the correct year is checked, download as a CSV file, and click download now. Okay, so we have our data table, which went into the downloads folder. Now let's get our shapefile. So census tiger files, we can go to the web interface, and we can get the most recent geography, or we can do 2018. They'll be the same, but we can select 2018 here for census tracts. Why census tracts? Because that is the geographic unit of analysis that our table is at as well. So we need to match the geographic level of the table to the spatial layer. And we can select census tracts for California and then download. And we see that we get a zipped folder with TL tiger lines 2018. 06 is the state code for California, and tracts. All right, so we need to do a little bit of editing to the ACS data table. So let's open up our download folder, and we'll go to the ACS data table that we just downloaded, and we can extract to this particular folder. And once we open up that folder, you'll see, as usual, we have the data file and then metadata, which is the data about our data, which gives us our variable definitions. Oh, it looks like the margins of error were downloaded after all. Okay. So here we see our variable names, and luckily the subheadings tell us what each of these are. But remember, we're going to have to delete those subheadings. So we first need to keep the variables that we are going to keep and get rid of everything else, just to make this a little bit easier uploading process. So we can keep here the estimates for total number of households. So I'll highlight that to make it easier. We can also keep all of these estimates of the number of persons in the household. Okay, and so we can get rid of all of the margins of error. I'm just going to highlight them by holding down Control. This may be faster than highlighting the ones we're going to keep. And then you can right click and delete. And then we'll go and look for the next ones that are margin of error and delete those. Okay, and now we have the total number of households, total number of family households, 2, and subsequent persons, then non-family households, and by household size. Okay, so we can keep all of these now. So we need to make sure that we get rid of these subheaders here. And normally, if this were a smaller data set, I would suggest changing these variable names to make it easier to identify. So you might have something like total households, and here total family households. And I also like to keep the original variable name. Sometimes these get long and will end up truncated when imported into ArcMap, but it's helpful when they do preserve because you can always work backwards to verify if you've made a mistake. Okay, so we're going to delete this subheader. Then we need to create a geographic identifier that matches in the shapefile. So with census tract data, the easiest way to do this is to use the GeoID column. And what we'll need ultimately is a number that looks like this, 06059, and then the census tract number. And it needs to be in text format. How do I know this? Because that's what is contained in the shapefile. The geographic identifier in the shapefile is in this format. So to do that, we will highlight this entire column, and we're going to find and replace, and we're going to find the 140000, so 5 zeros, along with the US, and we're going to replace it with one single apostrophe. And that one will then give us a GeoID column that should be text formatted as indicated by these green triangles in the upper corners of the cell. Okay, and we can keep the name, it doesn't matter, but it may be helpful to use for labeling, so we'll keep that in there. So here I'd like to save as. We're going to save as comma delimited, and I like to keep the original table name and then add edited at the end so that I know that this is the original table number, but now I've made changes to it. And again, remember to save in CSV format. And we can close out of this. So let's go to ArcGIS Online now to finish this process up. So we'll sign in. For my students, we're using our enterprise login. And we're going to go to content, and we want to upload the 2 files that we have just added. So we're under content, we're going to add item from computer. And we'll, under the downloads folder, find the tiger lines. And we can add that, and notice it automatically detects it's a shapefile. And we might call it California Census Tracts. And maybe use tracts as a tag. And we can add that. And it's almost done uploading here. Okay, that took a while. Awkward silence. So now we've uploaded the shapefile. We could give it a summary and a description. That's always good practice, but for speediness, I'm going to just add in a very quick summary here. California Census Tracts. downloaded from, and we could just copy the website, and we might add that it's 2018 data and copy the website here. Okay, so we'll save that. It may take just a moment here to complete creating the service. And the next step that we'll want to do is to upload the table of data. And then the final step will be to upload them and join them on a map. All right, so it looks like that finally completed. These are no longer grayed out. So we can go back to our content and add the second item from the computer. It's inside the unzipped folder that we just edited, right? And since I use all caps, which really annoys some people, but it makes it easy for me to find my files. Found that quickly. I can leave the title as is because it's quite descriptive. It's the ACS table 2018. This is the table number, the B11016, and I've edited. And I might also use tracts as a tag because it is at the census tract level. You do want to publish this as a hosted layer, and we can add this as a table. And we just want to verify that GeoID is being imported correctly, which it's not. Notice that ArcMap is trying to import it as a double, but it should be a string. That's the field type. That was the point of us trying to add that apostrophe. So sometimes CSV files, especially when edited in Excel, will be a little bit funky, so we just need to make sure here that we've adjusted this to string. Everything else looks good, so we can add the item. Almost there, folks. So we could do the same here, adding a summary. Table of census tract data for Orange County, California, on household size by family and non-family. And census tract data was ACS 2018 5-year estimates. Maybe we don't need that in the summary, but we could add that in the description if we wanted to. But we definitely want to include the data sources and even the table numbers in our data description. Okay, so now that we have added both of these things, we can start a new map, or we can initiate from here, right? We can open this in map viewer, although it's a table, so it won't be visible. And once we have the table added, we can also add the shapefile that we uploaded. And we'll see that we just uploaded that a moment ago, and it should appear if you have my content here. You shouldn't have too much content. You should just have the table and the census tracts, potentially maybe a little bit more if we've done other tutorials together. So now we have the census tract shapefile for all of California, and then the table of data for Orange County. So before we do anything else, let's filter these census tracts to just Orange County census tracts, and we can do that by limiting to the county code. Orange County is 059, so we can filter by county FP being equal to 059. And it may take a second to draw here. And now we have our Orange County census tracts. Okay, folks, we are almost there. The last thing that we need to do now is to join these the table of data to these census tracts, and we're going to do that by clicking on Perform Analysis, Summarize Data, and Join Features. And the target layer is the census tract shapefile. What we're trying to join is this table of data, and we need to join by fields. And the fields are GeoID in both tables. It's a one-to-one join, meaning each census tract only has one corresponding census tract in the table. And we can name the resulting layer something like California census tract household size. Now we'll know that we have, and it's actually not California, right? It's OC census tracts joined to household size. We can use the current map extent and save the result in our own folder. Now, this process will use just a few credits, and it will be the number of records in each of these. So we have, I believe, 583 in each table. 583 census tracts, so it's going to consume a few credits, and that's fine. We can then click Run Analysis. And we're almost done. Hang in there. Hopefully your computer is faster than mine, or your internet connection. I never know which to blame. And it is trying to join 583 separate records, so it may take a moment. And then when it's done, you will be able to visualize your data. So to summarize, what we've done is downloaded and cleaned the census data table, downloaded the shapefile in the corresponding geographic unit of analysis, uploaded both of them to ArcGIS Online, and joined the table to the feature layer. And the last portion you know how to do, so I'll leave you to do that. And before we go, let's just verify by opening up the attribute table that we do now have the joined information to our census tracts. And if you scroll to the right of the table, we do indeed have all of those variables that we've just added. Now, in my haste, I didn't change the variable names, which makes it really difficult and error prone. So I highly recommend that you do add variable names to the front of these original variables. But if you get confused, you can always go back to the metadata file to look up the variable definitions, right? So total number of households is this first one. Total number of family households is the second, and so on. All right, folks, so we've just gone through the entire process of how to download census data and join it in ArcMap, and now you are free to visualize it on your own. Thank you so much for your attention.